At 1845 local time on November 1st, 2025, the driver of a Russian KamAZ truck stared into a blinding wall of rain on the Donets River, completely unaware that he and his entire convoy were being watched. In exactly 45 seconds, 12 Ukrainian hobby drones worth a combined $6,000 were about to turn his 20-truck convoy and Russia's entire multi-million-dollar Pokrovsk offensive into the world's most expensive bonfire. This wasn't a random act of war. It was a meticulously planned trap, sprung from a 72-hour intelligence operation. The target, the logistical lifeblood for 3 entire Russian divisions, rolling through what their command had designated a safe corridor. While Russian planners saw a storm as an obstacle, Ukrainian intelligence saw it as a weapon. Using American satellite data and their own night-flying recon drones, they had built a perfect 3D map of the route, identifying every choke point, every vulnerability. The storm wasn't a problem. It was the cornerstone of the entire operation. The stakes were astronomical. Destroying this convoy would paralyze the supply lines for a major offensive, saving an estimated 2,000 Ukrainian soldiers from encirclement. More importantly, it would send a chilling message to Moscow. Your logistics network is about to hit 1% battery life. But this presented an impossible equation. The convoy wasn't traveling alone. It was protected by a state-of-the-art Pantsir S-1 point defense system. The terrain was a nightmare of fog-shrouded hills, and Russian Orlan-10 drones were patrolling the skies. The million-dollar question: how do you get close enough to strike without being vaporized first? At 1840, the attack begins. The lead drone, callsign Banshee 7, dives below the tree line, its GoPro-style camera feed lashed with rain as it skims just 30 feet over the muddy hills. This is a $420 FPV drone, handmade in a garage in Kharkiv. It isn't armed with a $1 million missile. Instead, it's loaded with an AI optical navigation system from Kratworks, an algorithm trained on thousands of hours of flight data that knows how to tango with hurricane-force winds and blinding rain. The brain behind this swarm is a 22-year-old engineer sitting in a bunker 3 miles away. His fingers fly across a keyboard as he runs a final diagnostic, his voice a calm whisper into his headset. Swarm synchronization confirmed. 12 out of 12 drones are online. On the main screen behind him, 12 green icons move in a perfectly coordinated, deadly dance across a 3D map of the Donets River. Inside the Pantsir cabin, a single nagging icon flashes on the radar display. The operator squints. It's too small for an aircraft, too slow for a missile. It's something else. That single icon doesn't stay single for long. In a split second, it blooms, multiplying into 12 angry red dots swarming across the Pantsir screen like fire ants. The system's advanced threat assessment AI begins to glitch, struggling to classify them. It's trying to process 12 targets that are simultaneously too small, too low, and moving in a pattern that defies all its programming. You have to understand the absurdity of this matchup. The Pantsir is a thoroughbred racehorse, an engineering marvel designed to take down multi-million-dollar fighter jets and cruise missiles flying at Mach 2. Ukraine just sent a swarm of angry lawnmower engine-powered hornets to fight it. The system is screaming at the operator that each target has a radar cross-section smaller than a dinner plate and is flying so low it's blending in with the ground clutter. It's a nightmare shot for a system designed for jets, not GATs. But the operator, fueled by panic and procedure, overrides the confused AI. He trusts his training over the machine, manually selects the 2 clearest targets and punches the trigger. 2 streaks of fire launch from the turret, each $100,000 5.7E6 missiles. Seconds later, 2 distant fireballs confirm the hits, 2 drones down. The Russian crew is probably high-fiving, thinking they just saved the day. What they don't realize is that they just fell for the oldest trick in the book. Those 2 drones were decoys, programmed to fly just 50 feet higher than the rest of the swarm. While the Pantsir crew was watching the fireworks, the other 10 drones used the flash of the explosion and the missile smoke trail as a screen, dipping into the radar shadow of a low hill and vanishing completely. Let's do the math on that brilliant move. Russia just spent $200,000 to swat down about $1,000 worth of Ukrainian decoys. The economics of this war were being rewritten in real time. At 1847, while the Russian crew is frantically rescanning the sector, the 22-year-old Ukrainian engineer is ice cold. Sweat beads on his forehead despite the bunker being a chilly 60 degrees. He whispers a single command into his mic: swarm, execute maneuver, bird dance, now. Here's the genius of the Ukrainian plan. The Panzer's Doppler radar is its brain. It's programmed to automatically filter out ground clutter, things like birds, trees, and heavy rain, by analyzing their flight patterns. A conventional missile flies straight and true. A bird, especially in a storm, gets tossed around by turbulence, flying in an erratic, wave-like pattern. The Russians knew this, so the Ukrainians didn't try to hide from the radar. They taught their drones how to lie to it. The engineer had programmed the drone's AI to read real-time wind speed and atmospheric turbulence, and then fly in a perfect sine wave pattern that precisely mimicked a flock of birds being battered by the storm. They turned the storm from an obstacle into a digital ghillie suit. This exact tactic was first reported by Reuters back in August, when Ukraine used it to bypass sophisticated air defenses in Zaporizhia. Back in the Panzer, the operator is losing his mind. He's staring at a screen that's telling him the 10 targets he knows are there are just noisy weather. His instincts are screaming drones, but his $15 million machine is telling him to calm down. It's just a few ducks. Desperate, he makes the call he was supposed to make 10 minutes ago. Get the A-50 in the air. I need an eye in the sky now. From an airbase in Belgorod, the AWACS jet begins its takeoff roll. The cavalry is coming. Too bad for them. The cavalry is about to be very, very late. At 1848, the world outside the lead KamAZ driver's windshield wasn't a road anymore. It was a brown, churning nightmare. The narrow iron bridge, the convoy's only pass across the river, was groaning under the weight of a flash flood, the water now just feet below the deck. The driver of the third truck in line hits his brakes, but it's like trying to stop a 20-ton vehicle on a sheet of wet ice. His tires find no grip, just slick mud and rising water. There's a horrifying lurch sideways, a scream of twisting metal, and then nothing but a giant splash as the truck and its explosive cargo disappear into the 40-foot deep torrent. Someone just hit the water slide mode button on the Russian supply chain. But this wasn't an act of God. It was an act of Ukrainian ingenuity. This flash flood wasn't a random weather event. It was a pre-planned ambush. 72 hours earlier, small recon drones had scouted this exact spot, timing the strike with a forecasted deluge. They didn't create the storm. They turned Mother Nature into their primary weapon, using predictable autumn rain to create a dense fog that blinded Russian optics and a flash flood that turned their escape route into a death trap. Just as the Russians on the ground were realizing the river was trying to kill them, a new death appeared from the sky. High above the chaos, a larger 6-pound payload drone, callsign Gogol-M, had reached its target coordinates. Like a miniature B-52 bomber, its underwing pylons unclamped. 4 smaller FPV drones dropped from its wings, their propellers whirring to life as they dove like hawks towards the chaos below. The Gogol-M had just released her brood, and they were going straight for the lead truck. At 1849, the Panzer operator, done being fooled by ghosts on his radar, switches to pure thermal optics. He gets a lock. It's Banshee 7, the lead attacker. This time there's no confusion, no algorithm, just a man, a target, and a trigger. He fires. From the turret, a third $100,000 missile shrieks into the sky. In the Kiev bunker, the calm is shattered. A high-pitched tone screams from the console as a warning flashes on the screen. SAM incoming, lock detected. The engineer has less than 3 seconds before impact. He yells the command, Banshee 7, deploy decoy, now! The drone doesn't fire a flare. It does something smarter. It ejects a small pod on a 200-foot tether, a modified ALE-50 towed decoy. The pod ignites, its chemical composition designed to burn hotter and brighter than the drone's own electric motors. It's a magician's trick, played at hundreds of miles per hour. It's like trying to tackle a running back, only for him to toss the ball to an even faster player at the last second. The missile, a creature of pure heat-seeking instinct, sees the new, juicier target and changes course, slamming into the decoy. A bright flare erupts, drawing the missile away into a harmless burst in the rain-soaked sky. Back in the pantsier, the operator watches his kill shot turn into another miss. He slams his fist onto his console, cursing. Ukraine just spent $2,000 on a decoy to defeat his $100,000 missile. As the smoke from the decoy clears, the camera feed from Banshee 7 stabilizes. It's still flying, and it's now locked onto the lead KamAZ truck, just 500 feet away. Its mission timer hits 0. The final countdown begins. At 1850, the countdown hits 0. Banshee 7 doesn't just crash into the lead truck, it performs surgery. The 3-pound PG-7V shaped charge focuses its entire blast into a single white-hot jet of plasma that punches through the truck's fuel tank like a hot knife through butter. 1,000 gallons of diesel don't just burn, they detonate, erupting into a monstrous fireball that vaporizes the entire front of the bridge and reaches 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit in less than a second. But that inferno is just the appetizer. The main course is the 5 tons of artillery shells and rockets sitting in the truck right behind it. As the heat wave hits, the ammunition begins to cook off. It's a spectacular, lethal chain reaction. The shock waves act like a massive hydraulic ram, shoving the burning wreck of truck number 2 into truck number 3. The steep, muddy 30-degree slope of the riverbank does the rest of the work. One after another, 20-ton trucks slide sideways into the raging river below, exploding as they go. It's a symphony of fire, steel, and shattered overconfidence. From space, a Maxar satellite sees a new, man-made volcano erupting in eastern Ukraine, spewing a column of black smoke 2 miles into the atmosphere. The entire front half of the convoy is now a twisted, burning scrapyard sinking into the Donets River. At 1852, the last drone, Hornet 12, circles high above the carnage. It's not attacking, it's filming. In glorious 4K, it zooms in on the apocalyptic scene. Burning truck chassis sliding into the river, ammo cooking off in secondary explosions, and the silhouettes of Russian soldiers scrambling up the muddy banks, their escape illuminated by their own burning supply line. The final tally is brutal. 8,000 gallons of fuel, gone. 5 tons of ammunition, gone. An estimated 40 Russian soldiers written off as casualties. All of it erased in just 7 minutes. To truly appreciate the genius behind this attack, you have to slow it down and dissect the anatomy of the destruction. It started with the fuse. The drone's PG-7V warhead was set with a 0.5-second delay. It's an insignificant detail that makes all the difference. That half-second was just enough time for the warhead to puncture the fuel tank before detonating, ensuring the explosion happened inside the diesel, not outside. When it did go off, the 1,000 gallons of fuel flash vaporized, unleashing a pressure wave of over 200 psi. But the wave didn't expand into open air. It was channeled by the steep, 30-degree valley walls of the riverbank, turning the entire valley into the barrel of a shotgun. That focused pressure wave, a literal wall of force, slammed the burning wreck of the first truck into the second, which was loaded with 5 tons of ammunition. The intense heat from the diesel fire then initiated a sympathetic detonation of the artillery shells, a chain reaction that reached temperatures of 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And the final elegant piece of destruction, the bridge itself. The sustained hellish temperature from the ammunition cook-off caused the old iron support beams to lose their tensile strength. They didn't break, they sagged like wet spaghetti, spilling the rest of the burning convoy into the river below. It wasn't just an ambush, it was a masterclass in turning an enemy's own fuel, their own ammunition, and even the ground they stood on into the instruments of their own annihilation. By the time the last piece of shrapnel had splashed into the Donets, 80% of the convoy had been vaporized. What about that A-50 AWACS, the Russians' all-seeing eye in the sky? It finally arrived on station a full 15 minutes after the first explosion, but it wasn't a savior. It was just a witness to a funeral. Its powerful radar saw nothing but a massive, impenetrable column of black smoke. Below that smoke, its thermal imagers saw a single, continuous scar of white-hot heat where a convoy used to be. The cavalry had arrived just in time to watch the credits roll. The destruction of those 20 trucks was the first domino in a chain reaction of strategic collapse. For the next 48 hours, the Russian KamAZ network in the sector went dark as officers scrambled to figure out what had just happened. But the real impact was felt on the front line. 500 Russian artillery guns, the iron fist of their Pokrovsk offensive, fell silent. Not because they were destroyed, but because they were thirsty. Their fuel was now at the bottom of the Donets River. The planned Russian assault, meant to encircle 2,000 Ukrainian troops, didn't just stall, it was deleted. It ceased to exist. The psychological impact was even more devastating. The story spread like wildfire through the Russian ranks, not of a drone attack, but of something far more terrifying. They whispered about Ukrainian weather witches and storm drones that could appear from nowhere, invisible to their most advanced systems. When Putin was briefed, he reportedly flew into a rage, demanding to know how a $15 million air defense system could be defeated by a rainstorm. The paranoia was so intense that all replacement convoys were halted for 2 days, effectively starving their own army. Back in the Kiev control room, the chaos on screen was met with a deafening silence. The 22-year-old engineer stared at his monitor, his hands frozen above the keyboard. A single line of green text flashed on the main screen. Mission complete. Target destroyed. For a second, nobody breathed. Then, the bunker erupted. Engineers leapt from their chairs, hugging and screaming, their voices raw with triumph. The young engineer leaned back, a slow grin spreading across his face as he shouted the 2 words that just sealed the fate of a Russian offensive: Slava Ukraini! Bye for now.